The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. Chapter 29. To London. When Hendon's punishment was over, he and Edward were ordered to leave the town at once. "What shall I do? Where shall we go?" thought Miles. "Where can I find help? Perhaps the best thing to do will be to go to London and beg for justice from the young king." He turned to Edward and said, "I have forgotten to ask your majesty where we shall go now. What will your command be?" "To London." Hendon was glad to hear this command, but surprised at it too. So they started for London. About 10 o'clock on the night of the 19th of February they came to London Bridge. They found themselves in a crowd of drunken people. Those people were already beginning to celebrate the coronation day, the 20th of February. London streets were beautifully decorated with flags and banners for the coronation of Edward VI. Everybody shouted and sang and danced. Some drunken men started a fight, and soon Hendon and the king lost each other in the crowd. And so we leave them and come back to the mock king Tom Canty. When we saw him last he was just beginning to see good things in his new life. He lost his fears. He got all information about the court life from the whipping boy. He ordered Lady Elizabeth and Lady Jane Grey to visit him when he wanted to play to talk. He allowed them to kiss his hand when they were leaving. It became pleasant for him to go to dinner with a crowd of lords around him. He liked to hear voices down the long corridors, "Way for the king." Oh, happy Tom Canty of Awful Court! He was still good-hearted and he made war upon cruel English laws. Did Tom Canty ever feel worried about the poor little prince who had run out to punish the cruel soldier? He had run out for a minute and disappeared. Yes, his first royal days and nights were full of worry and sad thoughts about the prince. But as time went on and the prince did not come back, Tom began to forget about him. The same thing can be said about his mother and sister. At first he thought of them quite often and he felt sad without them. But little he began to forget them too. On the night of the 19th of February Tom Canty was quietly sleeping in his rich bed in the palace. At the same hour, Edward, the true king, cold and hungry, dressed in rags, was standing in the crowd. The people were watching with great interest the workmen who walked in and out of Westminster Abbey. Those workmen were making the last preparations for the royal coronation.